Hello students, today we'll study poem number 3 of First Flight, that is A Tiger in the Zoo, written by Leslie Norris. Before we proceed with the poem, let us read few lines about the poet. George Leslie Norris was born in the year 1921 and died in 2006. George Leslie Norris was a prize-winning Welsh poet and short story writer. He is considered as most important Welsh writers of the post-war period, and his literary works have won many prizes. His famous works are Finding Gold, The Loudwinder, Phoenix, Living Poets series, Ransoms, etc. Now students, if you had been to zoo, you must have seen the animals confined in the cage. What we notice is that they all seem to be energyless, listless, and lethargic. Have you ever thought of why? Yes, it is because their freedom has been curtailed. So here in the poem, also written by Leslie Norris, the poet explains the agony and helplessness of a caged tiger that lives in a zoo. The poet explains what his life could be if he had been a free animal. The poet has tried to explain about the condition of animals that are caged by human beings for their fun. So here is the poem, A Tiger in the Zoo. The poem contrasts a tiger in the zoo with a tiger in its natural habitat. The poem moves from the zoo to the jungle and back again to the zoo. Read the poem silently once and say which stanzas speak about the tiger in the zoo and which one speaks about the tiger in the jungle. So before we start with the explanation part, let us give a glance look at the poem. He stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage, on pads of velvet quiet, in his quiet rage. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass, near the waterhole where plump deer pass. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. But he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. Now let us start with the explanation of the verses. This is verse number 1. He stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage, on pads of velvet quiet, in his quiet rage. Stalks here means follows, vivid having deep bright colors, pads the paws of the tiger, and rage means uncontrollable anger. He stalks in his vivid. He here is the tiger. Stalks means to move, to follow. He stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage. Here, the poet says that the tiger is confined in the zoo and moves around the cage. The stripes on his body are of strong, bright color. The tiger takes only few steps. The few steps of his cage? The tiger takes only few steps. Why? Because he is locked in the cage and the cage is very small. It is not very much easy to move in it. Then further, the poet says, on pads of velvet quiet, in his quiet rage. The tiger moves quietly on his velvet pads. Pads here means he has very soft feet. Velvet is very soft. It's a material, it's a fabric which is very soft. So the velvet, his soft feet are being compared to the velvet cloth. He has very soft feet like velvet, because of which there is no sound when he walks. Further, the poet says, the tiger is angry. Why? Because he is being locked and he is not free. But still, the tiger tries to control his anger by quietly walking in that limited area of the cage. Let us move to the second verse. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass near the waterhole where plump deer pass. Lurking means remaining hidden so as to wait in ambush. So when the poet looks at the imprisoned tiger, he is filled with pity. He says that if the poor tiger had been free in his natural habitat, then he would have been lying in the shadows of tree and sliding quietly through the long grass. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass near the waterhole where plump deer pass. Then, near the waterhole, he would be waiting for some fat deer to pass that way. Here, the fat deer would be the prey as a food for the tiger, and thus he would be lying there in the expectation of a heavy feast. Let us move to verse number 3. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. Snarls here means making an angry warning sound, or we can say growling, the sound of the tiger. Baring means to uncover, to expose something, and fangs, a large sharp tooth, especially a canine tooth of a dog or a wolf, or here we can say the tooth of the tiger. Now the poet imagines what the tiger would be doing in cage, as here he fails to find any prey which he would have found in his natural habitat. He says that if the tiger had been free, he would be growling, he would be snarling at the edge of the jungle near some village. Then what all he would be doing? He would become a cause of terror for the villagers, as he wanted, as he would be showing his white fangs, fangs means teeth, and claws while moving here and there. And this would be terrorizing the village. That means while he would be moving here and there, it would create fear among the people who would be living in the village. Let us come to verse number 4. But he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. Concrete here means a building material made from a mixture of broken stone or gravel, sand or cement and water, which can be spread or poured into mold and forms a mass which resembles stone on hardening. So now the poet sees that in spite of all the strength which the tiger possesses, he is still confined in a strong cell. Strong cell here is the concrete cell, which is made up of strong building material. What are these strong building materials? They are a mixture of stone or gravel, sand, cement and water. He further says that as the tiger is behind bars, so is his ferociousness, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. Very slowly and silently he moves up and down along the length of the cage and takes no notice of the visitors who come to the zoo. That means he does not relish the curious stares of the visitors. He takes no notice of the visitors, probably because he is confined in the cage and he seems to be helpless there. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. Patrolling means keeping watch over by regularly walking or traveling around it. Patrolling here is the cars which the zoo officials are carrying, and that keeps a watch on the animals. Now further the poet says, the tiger knows no rest during the day because of the visitors, as it creates a lot of disturbance. But even at nights, he remains disturbed due to the noise of the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. He keeps staring at the brilliant stars with the brilliant eyes. Perhaps he is asking heaven why he has been imprisoned there. So students, here the poem ends. Now let us see about the rhyming scheme. The rhyme scheme in the whole poem is A, B, C, B. A, we see stripes, it has no rhyming pair. Then B is cage, it has rage as in rhyming pair. So B in the second line and B in the fourth line. And quite also doesn't have any rhyming word. So A, B, C, B will be the rhyming scheme which is being followed in the whole poem. Now let us look at the poetic devices. The first poetic device which we are studying here is the personification. Tiger here has been addressed as he. So it is personification. It is very much clear. Whenever any animal or any non-living thing or any inanimate objects is being considered as being possessing the human qualities or human behaviors, or when they are being addressed as he, she or I, then that means the poetic device used is the personification. Now comes enjambment again. Enjambment means there is no pronunciation, there is no punctuation marks here. These two sentences, first and second sentence, they are making a complete sense. He stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage. So this is an enjambment. Then comes imagery. Again, imagery is whenever the words which are being used in the poem creates or something, you start imagining the things in front of your eyes. That is your imagery. For example, here it is being used as he stalks. That means he moves in his vivid stripes. So we start imagining about the physical appearance of the tiger, about the gestures, about the movement of the tiger. So all the things used to come before our eyes. So it is imagery. Then comes consonants. Consonants may again, when in one sentence we can see that same alphabets are being used. Not the vowels, but the consonants are the same consonants are used. For example, stalks, sir and sir sound is there. His, then again sir sound is there. Stripes, s and s, then again sir sound is there. So the poetic device here used is consonants. Then comes assonance. Consonants. In consonants we see the consonant, the repetition of the consonant, and in assonance we see the repetition of the vowels. So here I is the vowel which is being constantly being used. He stalks, in I is used. In his, again I is used. Vivid, again I is used. And stripes, again I is used. So the poetic device here used is the assonance. Now comes oxymoron. What is oxymoron? So oxymoron, what is an oxymoron? It is the opposite ideas which are joined to create an effect. For example, here we can see quiet and rage. Quiet means very silent and rage means anger, when you are furious. So these are the two opposite ideas which are being used, and these two opposite ideas are joined just to create an effect. Now, the next poetic device is onomatopoeia. That means the sounding words where we used to get the sound. For example, he should be snarling. Snarling here is creating the sound effect. So, it is an onomatopoeia. Now, next, the last poetic device is the alliteration. Alliteration, in first line we can see H and H is being used. He hears. So, H sound is being repeated. So, it is an alliteration. So, dear students, now let us see what is the central idea of the poem. The poem clearly expresses that the tiger is a proud creature, and it is a shame that such a powerful animal should be caged in a zoo. In his natural and wild habitat, he does not need the help of any kind to hunt its own food. His hunting of deer at the waterhole may seem rather cruel, but he hunts not for pleasure but for food. His presence in the natural habitat is necessary to maintain the balance of the food chain. Sometimes the tiger may stray into human habitation. He only displays his strength and ferociousness, but he does not harm anyone till he is provoked. Even in the cage, he ignores all those who come to the zoo to see him as entertainment. Like human beings, the tiger too loves and values his freedom. He shows his anger, hatred, and even defiance by walking about in rage in his cage. Human progress should not be at the cost of destroying the natural habitat of untamable and proud animals like the tiger. So students, now let us see what is the style of the poem. The poem we have seen is consisting of 5 stanzas. Each is made up of 4 lines, and the rhyming scheme we have already discussed is A, B, C, B. The poem has 2 distinct settings. The first setting is that of the zoo, where the tiger is put in a cage. The second setting is that of the natural wild habitat of the tiger, which should have been his real place. The personification of the tiger is evident, as the poet calls him he and not it. The metaphor is used in pads of velvet, which is used effectively in third line of the first stanza. The 10th stone represents the hidden rage of the tiger. So dear students, now here we have studied about the feelings of the poet towards the tiger. We've also studied about the theme and the central idea of the poem. Explanation of all the 5 verses we have done, and what all poetic devices have been used, that also we have seen. And very soon you will get the PDF containing the theme and reference to context. It will be having your NCERT questions. It will be having the extra questions also, and that you will have to do in your notebook. Whatever doubts and queries you will have, that will be sorted out in the Zoom session. Till then, you have to read and understand the poem very well. So now, goodbye all of you. Have a good day ahead.